confronting an aging membership, but we don't feel old. We feel young at heart, and we're doing very well, actually, despite the numerological number of years that we are. Anyway, several committee members, Jerry Teplitz and Annaleah Atkinson, will be sharing, and they'll tell the results of a recent membership survey, and a look at who we reach at our Sunday service broadcasts, our YouTube and Facebook Live, and several other current projects. So here's Jerry Teplitz.
Welcome to the Fellowship Vision Group. It's now composed of Annaleah, myself, Brian Berry, Steve Truax, and Mary Hall. And
Brian Berry.
Yeah, a bunch of years ago, I looked around and saw the aging of our congregation and was concerned about how we're going to stay in existence. And so that then began a journey that continues in terms of the Vision Group and assisting the church in moving forward. We come up with ideas and thoughts, and it's up to the board and the PC to decide if they want to move forward with things. Some things they definitely do, some things they don't. And so it's kind of a process, and it's an ongoing process of continuing to look and see what we can do to attract younger folks to, in effect, take over this journey that we've all been on for a long time. And so Annaleah wants to say something for opening, and then we'll start moving into what we've been doing from Vision Group standpoint and the survey that we did of the members and kind of the results that we've gotten. So kind of paint a big, broad picture.
Yes, it's been a pleasure to be on this group and to think. It's when I think it's like, hey, we've got Grace in Holland, and we've got, you know, the Van, our group itself. We're in Hawaii. Steve is in Southwest Virginia. Mary Hall is in Cincinnati. Karen Drought is in, no, she's not in that one. That's my prayer healing group. But Jerry is here at base. You know, we've had others of you from different places, and it's just, the fellowship is far reaching, and it's a consciousness, and the consciousness is expanding all over the world. And so we're working on how to make it more accessible to people. So we welcome input. You know, that's the one thing so much. It's like, you know, it should, there's 5 of us, there's 6 of us, and then the pastoral council. To me, it's been a brain trust, a heart trust for a long time. So we're really open to your ideas. To discuss them. I mean, Brian Berry came up with, reading Rebuilt, and we all read Rebuilt, and how a church, you read this, and nationwide, churches are getting older, the kids aren't joining, and the churches are crumbling. So we don't want that to happen to our church. So your input is really important today and always. Okay, Jerry.
So what we wanted to go through is some of the things we've been suggesting and changes that have been happening. So you understand that there is movement taking place. And last time we made a report was 2 years ago to the congregation at the gathering that was the last one that was live. And since then, we had made a number of suggestions for Sunday service, things to do differently, and the PC agreed to many of them. And so from our standpoint, that was real good confirmation, because it was earlier on in terms of how's the PC going to react to changes. And they were open.
The PC, for those who aren't
Pastoral
around,
Council.
Pastoral Council. There's
Thank
2 organizations. There's the board and the Pastoral Council that we are responsible to.
Yeah, and the board makes decisions on the running of the church, the finances, the overall operation. The PC makes decisions on the spiritual side. And so that's kind of the difference. Annaleah, you're up.
Okay, well, I think what I had is to talk about the Zoom groups was the first thing that I was going to speak about, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. One of the things that we thought is let's start using technology. This is a result of it. I mean, in a sense, we started the first Zoom group, I think was Steve Truax started the going through the journal, wasn't it?
It was a little more complicated. We started out with a 9-step process
Oh,
group,
that was right.
and Mary and I talked about that several times, and then I made the offhand remark, we ought to start a mystery school journal group too, you know, famous last words. A year later, we are meeting faithfully. We have been on quite a journey together, but it didn't start with me, but we ended up having a group that I thought would meet 2 or 3 times, and instead it's got real legs.
Yeah, that's great. Another group that's going is one Sarah Anderson had been having a prayer healing group in the church. And then that kind of went out and I'm like, hey, in this pandemic, don't you think prayer healing would be a wonderful thing for people to be involved with? And so I got involved with her in that and we wrote up what it would be. And we meet once a week, every Thursday at, okay, your time would be 8 o'clock at night and for
3 o'clock in the
3
afternoon.
o'clock, it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you know, it's like, okay, so I'm 6 hours behind you guys. So
Yeah.
anyway, whatever. And that changes, doesn't, with the time change.
Mhm.
Then Sharon Solomon and Brian Berry are together doing an ILC group. Sharon Solomon what did you do? You did one, Sharon. Yeah, Paul Solomon readings. So we were able to share a lot of information and people would sign up, you know, for the times and join. So we're pretty happy with that. And one of the things, and Jerry's going to talk about the surveys. We thought, well, you know, we want to know what you guys want. We want to know what our peeps want, and or what you think would be of interest to people to get them to come. And one of them was if we had an ongoing class on meditation where we actually did meditation with people, you know, and you know, it could even be, remember mantra meditation? That was the first one in ILC where, you know, you have a mantra and you go over that, but then, you know, the 7 terraces meditation and developing that in people. But to me, one of the things that I know, we talked about this in our group, well, why did you get involved in the fellowship? And it was always to learn how to communicate with God, you know, to know my source, and which is the result of the 7 terrace meditation. So that one's kind of new to us and we're still working on that, but we're open to your ideas about it again.
And then what we did with if for the folks who get the weekly newsletter, we went through it as a group and made suggestions for making it more readable. And again, they were very open to the board in that case, and Susan were very open to making those kinds of changes. Then the website, I got involved with the redesign with Jack and
Hey, Jack.
Jack Sontag, and we hired a guy from, I think, Pakistan on Fiverr.com, which is a website where you can get people to do things who are high quality but really low priced but for their country, it's good price, low price for us. And so we went through a whole redesign, and the kind of the last step I did was to bring it to the group to give me kind of the final feedback on what do we need to change, what do we need to make different in it. And so if you go online, if you go on your cell phones, you'll see what we have as a website now, and Stephen Poplin has agreed to be the webmaster of that as well. And so that whole evolving of that came through the vision group as well. Annaleah?
Okay. One of the things that came out in the surveys, I think, is that, well, this was from Rebuilt. We realized that millennials, and Brian,
Let me interrupt for a second, Annaleah, just so people are aware that this book that she's talking about, it's called Rebuilt, was about a Catholic church in Maryland that was close to collapse. And they went through the whole process they went through to rebuild them to where now they're a mega church. And it came from almost being out of business.
and what there were a few things I could say about that. But one of the things that they said they realized they had to do was do things of interest to the millennials. Like we have to go out of our way to do things. And but that's like, it's interesting too, because the millennials don't want to learn from old people, apparently. That's what Brian said. He worked with them on a whole ship. So maybe what we have to do is have the information available. And I don't think they'd mind learning a meditation technique from a gray-haired somebody or something, but you know.
Annaleah, can I just summarize that quickly, the ship experience?
Yeah,
Sure.
please do.
Okay, so I spent 4 months on a semester at Sea Ship with 530 undergraduates and 35 faculty. Anyway, so I started a group, and there was a man from India, a young man, who started a group. And both my group and his group outdrew the chaplain and his Sunday services and the rabbi and his Sabbath services. And I'm asking myself, why? I wasn't doing that much teaching. I was sharing meditation. Really, they all know what it is. It's not like it was for us in the 70s. What were they coming for? And the answer that I came up with over time, they want miracles. They want to feel God's hand in their presence and in their life. If they're not interested in, I'm not even going to, let's not call it dogma. Let's call it book learning. They're not interested in that. Don't let old folks sit in and say a little something once in a while, but what they really need is to get together and not tangle with each other. And that's probably all I'm going to say at this point. However, I'm still in touch with 12 or 14 of them, and it's been since 2017.
Yeah.
So it makes a difference.
Yeah. You're pretty good for an old fart there, Brian.
Yeah, that's right. Mostly because I kept my mouth shut.
Yeah, could be. But so anyway, these are things that we're considering. You know, like this, and I spoke with Sarah about this, about how, what do we do? We're getting good now. We're getting a web presence, you know, a YouTube presence, a Facebook presence, and we could be putting up things that are really interesting. So instead of like, I don't know what it, just give an example, but Mother's Day talk or something, you know, like that might not interest a millennial, but if you have the divine feminine, you know, or something about something that would, the miracle of motherhood or how, or some, okay, Karen down here is saying the goddess, but whatever, I don't know, we don't need to do that, but snazzier titles or, you know, just different things. So we're working on that. Another thing that, so we're looking for the meditation group. There was a question on updating the language of ILC, and my proposal is that we get all of the ILC people that ever got together and see what isn't working, what is working, what I think it's pretty good, but you know, we'll just have to see about that. So we're going to get together and we can, and you can give us feedback too, if you have ideas about that. One of the things that we looked at was fundraising. We looked at 2 different venues and neither one of them, I forget the name of the one that Judith.
Indiegogo.
Indiegogo. And one of the things is that, okay, so I'm in Hawaii and, you know, Stephen's in Virginia and someone else, but it's like, we don't want to put any pressure on the local people here. They are, you know, Sharon and Susan and, you know, Bruce and, well, Poplin's pretty young still. But anyway, so we have to filter some of these things didn't work. We were thinking about if we offered people a membership, you know, like the ARE as a possibility and what we could give them for a membership, which would be a subscription to the newspaper, our newsletter and interesting things, you know. But we're still looking at that. Okay, so we haven't really come out with fundraisers, except one thing I want to give feedback to is that every time Bruce has said, we need this amount of money for 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 this, it's like the congregation supplies it. So
One of the things on the financial side, we've seen from the board is that we've been able to actually maintain our finances through COVID.
yeah,
And so the notion of doing separate fundraising hasn't been as high a priority because of that, we have a monthly meeting and George, our treasurer, says how much, and it's like, it doesn't go down. It stays where it's now it's not tons of money, but it's, you know, we've got about 15,000 in our reserves basically to keep operating. So that makes us feel good that we don't have to necessarily be looking at fundraising at this point in time.
okay, so. And I didn't get to see George at all, but one of my assignments for this was to ask George how many communications have been coming from younger folks. And I don't know that yet. He was here.
I've got that.
You did get that, okay,
I've got that.
go forth.
So before that, the Seven Terrace meditation that you experienced after church today, the idea for moving it to after service, because we're on Zoom, came from the vision group sharing it with the PC. They liked the idea. They've been playing with it, and they've now got it as once a month is what they're going to look at doing with the Seven Terrace meditation. So how successful have we been on the internet with our service, our Sunday service? And there are statistics we were able to find, like you may see at the bottom of your screen, it says how many are on this call now, and it's like 22 participants. So I run the iPads. Stephen Poplin runs the iPads at service, and we get to see the numbers there. And just so you're aware, at the Sunday service, we might have maybe 12 to 18 people. So
Body.
in bodies live watching YouTube and Facebook. But then after a couple of months, the numbers change. Now, Facebook counts as a viewer if somebody was there for 3 seconds.
Yeah.
So we don't know really how long people were there. But just to give you an idea of combining Facebook's numbers with YouTube numbers after a couple of months, just to give you some examples, Dick Dingus did a remote healing service, had 164 views. Sharon Solomon did a thing on the altar, had 124 views. Clarice D'Amata had 190 views. Ravi Mukalaka, he runs the computer science department, ODU, and he's Hindu, I believe, had 199 views. Bruce Shelton had 220 24 views. So we're actually getting numbers of views that are higher than what we normally had at Sunday service physically when we were open. So to me, the notion, and the board and PC agreed with this, of continuing to do Sunday service broadcast via Zoom, not Zoom, via YouTube and Facebook, because it gives us a broader audience than we've had before. But then the question becomes in who is actually watching and where are they from? And so it turns out the bulk of the people watching, this is from Facebook, are basically, when you look around at the church and you see our ages, that's who's tending to watch. At this point, we get 0 in the 13 to 17-year-old category. We get a minuscule amount of 0.5%, 18 to 24. We get 12%, though, 25 to 34-year-olds. And then it starts to go up some, so that our the biggest group we have is actually our oldest group, 65 plus. We're at 24%, 27%. So we still are not reaching the younger folks. We are getting a touch with the 24 to 34-year-olds, but not enough in terms of what we're looking to do in terms of attracting. Where do people come from who watch? It's mostly Hampton Roads, but it's not exclusively. We have people from Germany and Portugal and Netherlands and Ireland and Sydney, Australia, and Portugal, and all over the world. Not a lot of folks, but we are literally touching people around the world. So we did a survey that some of you may have seen. It went out to people who get the newsletter. And we had, Steve, do you remember the number who actually responded? Was it about 45 or something like that?
Yes, 49, I think was the
49, yeah.
It was 49.
Steve was instrumental in analyzing the data.
Yay, Steve. He
It
worked
was
real
like,
hard.
we couldn't have done it without him.
This.
So I'm going to do a share screen now and run through a bit of the results that we had. So is everybody able to see my screen?
Yes.
So, so one of the questions we asked was, how did you originally hear about the fellowship? And I'm just doing a quick summary of what we've discovered. You heard about it mostly. This column here are the older folks. These are folks who are the newer folks in terms of years with the fellowship. And mostly it was friends. And also the AREs had an influence, but it's mostly with friends that people came to the church here. Here we go. Okay, now it is. Okay, so what year was it that you got involved with the church? And as you can see, it's we got a bunch of folks who responded in the earlier years. In the last 8 years, in terms of who responded, we only had about 12 people respond. And then what attracted you to the church? And the biggest number was Sunday services. That's both for the old and the new. Paul Solomon, the older folks were more attracted to him, but only one person, a newbie. So that means that a lot of people don't know about Paul and what's going on there. And then if you combine friendships and feeling of being home, that's kind of almost a second category in there of responses. So it's a feeling of being a part of something that seems to strike people. Then what do you experience that keeps you coming back to the church? And here you had lots of different responses, but if you kind of glance at them, friendships, just look for the word friendships in there. And that is telling me that people come because of the people here, and as one of the main reasons. Now, would you recommend the fellowship to your friends? We had yeses were pretty much across the board. Now, what are the top things you enjoy most about the Sunday service? So the speaker, and so our concept of using a unique speaker each week is actually something that's very attractive to our audience. The music is second, meditation is third. But when you put group songs in with music, it actually jumps up the numbers even more so. And then we asked, are there other activities or services you would like to see us offer? The answer was yes. And one of the things was a 2-day workshop on different topics. The notion of the gathering, actually, for this year's gathering, came from this survey. We passed it on to the PC and said, what do you see here you'd like to implement or have us work on as a group? And the thing that popped out for them was, let's do a gathering and do it online. And then Stephen and Sharon took the ball and started running with that and created what we're experiencing here. And then people were saying, this is a list of ideas people had that we haven't completely explored yet as to different activities we could do.
You
Then
went
do you
through
have,
that really fast, Jerry. Why
yeah,
don't
I
you
know.
slow it up a little?
If you want this report, the full report, you can email me, jerry@teplitz.com. And Stephen, if you can put that in chat, that'd be appreciated. So jerry@teplitz.com, and I'll email you the full report. We don't have time with, because I'm almost out of time to give you those kinds of details. But I want to show you that we have a lot of more details in here. Do you have any thoughts on attracting younger members? You had some folks that did, and then we asked what would they be. And these are just, you're seeing again, ideas that are there for us to explore further. Now, how familiar are you with Paul's teachings? The older folks were very familiar, a bunch of them, somewhat familiar. The newer folks were only somewhat familiar or not familiar at all. So in terms of doing more educating about Paul, that's something that we need to look at more closely. And then how would you did Paul's teaching help you in your life, and what meaning they have for you? And there were 27 responses. And again, if you want the full survey, I'd be glad to send that to you. You can see what people said. So if you cannot attend Sunday service, would you like to access the service as well as lectures and other programs and events live at the church via the internet? And as you can see, most folks are saying, yeah, I'd like to have it online. And this is part of the motivation for us to continue going online. And then we had some questions for people outside the area as to, of Virginia Beach, as to how do you keep contact with people in your area and attend or host a regular weekly meeting in your area. Most people do not. There are a couple that do. Communicating with other members you've met over the years. A nice chunk of folks do communicate with folks still. The gathering, it was 50-50 split of those who responded to that. Listening, watching, reading the teachings of Paul and fellowship teachers, a nice chunk there. 7 Tariffs meditation had a nice chunk. But in terms of how often people do it, most people who responded just do it occasionally. And by working with other fellowship members was a split on it. Reading the newsletter, actually lots of people get their news and information about the church from the newsletter. Ordering the Paul Solomon teachings off the Paul Solomon Foundation website, that was kind of a split. Through prayer, staying in touch with members, lots of folks are doing that. And by watching the service on YouTube, a bunch of folks there, but it's occasionally was the majority there. And would you be interested in creation of a regular Zoom get together? Nice chunk of folks there said yes, and they said to do it monthly. And then we had some different formats we put up, and they like a notion of a 5 to 10 minute social catch up and sharing ILC classes they liked, have a fellowship teacher or other presenter lead. Would you be open to hosting a workshop, training, or event in your area? Most people would not. And then we looked at what age group do you fall into, and like I said from those statistics earlier, we are in the upper age group there. And then we had, are there any ideas you'd like to share how you can attract more people to the church? And there are a number of just interesting ideas there that have to be explored. So this is to give you just a quick thumbnail that this has given us a lot of information. And so we're in the process of looking at it and seeing how it can best work, and that we can best share further to keep moving forward. Annaleah?
No, so I just am encouraging you all to be involved. You know, if it's interesting to you, if you want to keep it going, you value it, get involved with us, with the center, volunteer to teach a course, one of those 2-day conferences. You know, that's important. And I guess, what's the best way for them to contact
Yeah,
us?
so if you're interested in actually becoming a part of the committee,
Yeah, we'd like more people in the
we
committee.
meet once a month on Sunday evenings on Zoom, around 7 o'clock
Once
East
a
Coast
month.
time, once a month.
Once a month.
And send me your name, send me your background, and tell me why you'd like to be on the committee. And that's to jerry@teplitz.com, and we'll get back to you. And so that kind of, I think, takes our time for how much we can share at this point about what we've been doing. So it's
We could answer some questions. We have, does anybody mind if anybody wants to ask a couple of questions?
I'd like to say something, if I may. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey, John.
Yeah, fantastic what you're doing, guys. Well done. Has any thoughts been put into offering the young people a platform maybe during the Sunday service or an evening thing, where we're actually asking the kids to giving them a platform to present their talents, like an X Factor, but also to talk about their spirituality and what they feel their need is, and what spirituality is to them, to get some young people in there talking, so that we can learn from them, and they can feel that they've got this outlet possibility. Because I know, as we all know, in our younger days, what drew us in was that collective thing we've just discussed about, the inspiration of Paul's teachings for me, and the music at the services. I remember many people saying to me when the services were packed, why do you come? Because of the singing, because of the joy, because of the music, you know. So I think if we gave young people a platform to come say, you know, come and perform and tell us about you. What is it like for you today? What do you think?
So we did raise that with the PC, and they decided that they did not want to. We raised it as doing another service specifically for younger people, designed for them, and the PC at the point you raised it didn't want to move forward with that.
I can also say that this is a story from Bruce Shelton. I wasn't here at the time, but he told me that within the last couple of years that they did search for some young people. They did find a couple of I think young women who then came to the fellowship, and that was again with the idea of having this youth perspective, and they turned out to be some evangelicals who wanted to convert us.
I like John's idea, though. I hear what you're saying, and you know, that's something I've written it down, and maybe we can discuss it in a group when we get back together again.
I like it too.
I'd certainly like to be involved with things wherever I can. I mean, it's just a time difference factor, but I think it's pretty much the same as you, Annaleah.
I know, but the other side. You're
that's all. But you know, Yeah, I think, and we're all on the ball here. We've got to get some young blood in.
Yeah. Or-
Can I throw something in here? When the millennials on the ship spoke, they wanted to talk about things that had happened to them that caused them to feel like God was knocking on the door. Those would be
Yeah.
accidents and illnesses and such. The very things we used to testify about in ILCs. That's still good currency.
Yes.
Absolutely.
The truth.
I think that's the real currency, you know, when we knuckle it down, what's inner light consciousness is about that rawness that Stephen spoke from today, which touches all of our hearts because it's straight to the heart. It's not dressed up too flowery or anything. It's real. It's the real mystery school lessons of everyday life. You know, if we can get younger people coming in and they feel, oh my God, somebody wants to listen to me and there's an outlet here and I can be real and I'm not going to be judged.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. How about anyone else? Anybody else have something? Because they're not going to read books, apparently, right, Brian? They don't, not so
Well,
much.
Too much like college, they don't want to do that. They're all very glad to be out. And in
Yeah.
about 10 years, they'll start reading again. That's my impression.
It'll be ebooks.
Yes, it will.
Yeah.
Or podcasts.
Podcasts are big. That is big. We might
And we got to mention one more thing, Instagrams. How
Okay.
can we put a message into an Instagram? I don't know, but that's what they're reading and talking about.
A
But-
professor,
I mean-
professor friend of mine said to me the other day, she said, I'm leaving university because all the kids are saying is, why do I need to be here? It's all on the internet.
Ah,
So
okay.
she said, over the last 5 years, we've been rethinking education altogether.
Yes, and many colleges are. Of course, Nancy is a professor, so I know that they are. And
Right.
the internet is where the heat is coming from.
Right. Right.
That's something I'm heavily involved with. And basically, Peter Woodbury from the ARE talks a lot about this. Young people are hungry for transcendent experiences. It's really true. They want real conversations about the hot issues like Black Lives Matter and that sort of thing.
That's it.
That's what I see.
The experience. It was like,
Yes.
you know, you talk about this is what's going to happen. Then you get to the top of your mountain. It's like, whoa, you know, and I was able to do a reading for my ex-husband's mother. And I said, there's something wrong with the teeth, you know, odd stuff. Turned out she had no teeth, you know, but I mean, I was like completely surprised, you know, and it gave me things or the healing that we have, you know, we heal. You can ask for healing and people heal. I have to tell you, our beloved Susan was really not well Thursday when we arrived. She's walking around, trekking around, doing different things now. She's healing so fast. They weren't even going to let her home initially from the hospital until today. You know, so how many of us got together, prayed? And that is like, to me, that's a transcendent experience, Matt. That's, you know, when people have that experience, you know, God, I didn't know if I was going to live or die. Like, well, like what Jim was talking about, you know, that I believe that.
Certainly part of the work that you all did in the Vision Group, and I attended several of the meetings, that we have this program here today, inspired by what you all did. And so I'm thankful for that.